Salutations, fellow students! You are watching the Student-to-Student Success Network, where we connect, encourage, and listen to students by giving them the tools they need to succeed, not only in school, but in their daily lives. Our videos are hosted by the BZK Warsaw Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society's chapter, BZK Kappa. In today's video, we'll be looking at the topic of motivation. Let's take a look, shall we? Hello, fellow students. This is Dorinda Brito, and I am the Vice President of BZK Chapter's Phi Theta Kappa, Vice President of Service. I'm here with Ellen Patterson today, and we will be talking about motivation. So before we get started, let's go ahead and hear a little bit about yourself.
My name is Ellen Patterson. I am a student here at BZK Community College in Warsaw. I will be graduating this spring, 2018, with a associate degree in business administration. And I have had a few challenges this last semester as my husband was diagnosed with cancer and is currently going through chemo treatment. I also have 2 children at home with very full schedules. And up until returning to school, I was a stay-at-home mom. And now that I'm in school, I'm still expected to kind of do all those duties while attending school. And I know some people think stay-at-home mom's easy, but if you do it and do it right, it's not. It's quite the job.
Well, Ellen, let's go into what motivates you in particular. Is there a struggle between what you have to do versus what you want to do?
I find myself very motivated by goals. I have goals set for myself. I'm committed to those goals, and I'm going to reach those goals. That is my huge thing. And there are times where I don't feel like doing the work, and I don't want to do it. I just want to take a day off, but I always just sit here and say, okay, if I just spend an hour on that today, and I make sure I dedicate another time if I'm in a super unmotivated mood, but I have a set schedule that I stick to every week, and I don't allow myself to deter from that, which helps keep me motivated.
Well, that's good. You know, it is really hard to stay motivated, but of course you have 2 sons. So one that's a teenager and one that's preteen age.
Yes.
That must be a struggle in and of itself. So I think something that a lot of us would like to know, as well as fellow students out there who may also have, kids of their own, with a busy lifestyle and juggling both, school, children, family, has it been a recent struggle with motivation in particular? What has been your personal struggles as a student? Not to mention, you are an honors student, so how do you keep yourself motivated?
Before I ever started school, I got a piece of paper out, and I wrote exactly what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be. I had a timeline, and if I have to pull that back out and look at it, I do. It keeps me very motivated. I know what I want, and I know where I want to be, and I know when I want to be there. And that is huge in keeping me motivated. Good. And with my kids, the big personal struggle is sometimes I have never in my children's life had to miss the honor roll breakfast before, or had to miss a soccer game. And now with my schedule, I've had to miss some of those, but I feel like the prize at the end will be so beneficial to not only me, but my children, that it's okay if I miss those. And I always, make sure to check up and see how they did. But that's really hard to miss that stuff when you're used to being room mom and always being there for them. And then suddenly you can't so much.
Do you feel that motivates them?
I think it helps them. It sets a good example for them to see that my mom can do this, I can do this. And hopefully, I know I waited till later in life, but I hope they do it a little younger because they see what sacrifices everyone has to make for me to do this. And if I could do it again, I'd never want my family to sacrifice the way they do. But I'm very grateful they're willing to do that for me and help me out.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. I did look over a book before starting our interview, and it's one that we have here, actually. It is by Stosh D. Welsh, and he is the writer of a book called Along the Way, Leadership Stories for Everyday Life. And he mentions motivation is intrinsic, so within yourself, in which people motivate themselves. What are your thoughts on this statement?
I think motivation has to come from you. I feel like I really agree with that because you always want a support system. You always want people there for you. But you never know when they're not going to be able to, or they're going to fall back, or you never know. And the only person you can always depend on in your life is yourself. And so you need to have that inner value, that inner commitment, motivation to what you're doing to get where you want to be.
Yeah. And that kind of leads us into the next question. It's a bit of a long one, but I feel like it's important because a lot of it is taken for granted. I was reading another book. It was by Daniel Pink here. It's called Drive. And with this book, I kind of knew who Daniel Pink was before because he had done a TED Talk about a candle experiment on how to solve a particular problem. We watched it in a business class, I think, or we had it as an assignment. So I was kind of familiar. And he says in his book that people use what's called the Tom Sawyer effect. So are you familiar with Tom Sawyer and, that sort of thing? Yeah. There's a scene in the book where he has to paint a fence. And it's where he doesn't like doing it, but he convinces all the other kid, hey, this is really fun. You should do it for me. And then he realizes, oh, look at all the fun that they're having, but now I'm missing out on it. So it's a situation in which you can either turn play into work or turn work into play. And an example of this would be, say if a professor offers you 10 or 5 extra credit points as an incentive on a research paper that is a topic that you are interested in researching. Over time, the extra points are only a motivation to boost your overall grade, but not a means to retain anything new from, the extra task. You don't learn anything. Do you think that in order to be motivated, you always have to have an incentive or a reward?
No, I think it's very, very helpful. However, sometimes just some personal pride really motivates you because you want to impress people because that's how you're going to get somewhere. So even though the reward's not right there, maybe you can't see it, maybe you have no idea what it is. And maybe all it will ever be is yourself how well you did. But that is worth it.
Yeah. And I can agree with that. I think that incentives do help, but they can also hurt.
Right.
They can do more harm than good because that joy that you used to have in a certain task goes away. Or perhaps it becomes a mundane task because, I get this incentive. It was great before, now it's just a part of everything and it doesn't mean too much.
Kind of like you take your kid grocery shopping with you and you're like, hey, if you're really good in the store, I'll let you pick out a piece of candy in the aisle when we're done. That only works for so long, and then they just expect the candy without the behavior. Right, so it has to be self-driven in a way.
That's a perfect example. So with that being said, do you think that leaders, such as employees or professors, maybe even parents, should do the motivating, or is it mainly the responsibility of a student or employee? We already kind of talked about this. However, is or could positive or negative feedback be essential to a particular motivator as well?
I feel like they can aid in motivating. I think feedback is always important because if I'm not doing the job right and I'm doing something wrong, no matter how negative, I want you to tell me so I can make that correction. Yeah. But if I'm also being outstanding, I want to know that so I can continue. Your employees always want to feel valued. As a student, you want to feel valued. And I think that's just everybody wants to feel valued. And I don't feel like it's necessarily maybe a professor's job, but when a student feels cared about and like it matters, it makes a big difference in motivation.
Yeah. And I can agree with that too. I always like getting the positive feedback. It always is just like this extra boost that I need in order to feel motivated that I am doing something right. And at the same time, as much as you don't like negative feedback, it's important because it's, building. It's building on your character. It's building you.
Right.
And how can you do something better? So, can a set goal be a motivation? You had talked about goals. And if so, what are your personal goals that you do to keep motivated, that motivate you? How do you achieve those goals with such a busy schedule?
Well, one thing I make sure to do is I have my paper at home I can look back at that has my goals. My goal was I am going to achieve my college education before 40. I should have that completely achieved by, I'll be 38. So I'll have that. My goal was to go into a field that I would not only enjoy, but that where I could make the money to provide for my family and the certain things like help them with their college when they're ready. And I should be able to do that. And just I have my mother-in-law, if we go on vacation, she takes us on vacation. And I know how difficult it is with a new family and being young to be able to just pay for that stuff sometimes. And I want to be able to do that someday when my children choose to have children. So those are goals, and I've had them set, and I keep the eye on the prize. And then, what was the last?
Oh, the last one was, how do you achieve these goals with such a busy schedule?
With school and my kids, and I'm still expected to do the cleaning and the housework and the laundry and all that because my husband works 2 jobs. But I like schedule. I like knowing what's going to happen when. And every semester I have to reevaluate it because times, of course, classes change. Right. But I have a set schedule for when I'm going to study, when I'm going to do homework, when I'm going to do certain things, and I stick to it.
So will you say that, usually having these like struggles with motivation could, be a factor of not having an effective time management?
Yeah, you really have to manage your time because I know even like my husband has had lots of doctor's appointments. And I know that sometimes we're going to be there a while. So I have checked out, do you guys have Wi-Fi? So I sit there and I'll do my homework while waiting on an appointment to finish up. Or while he's getting a treatment, I will do homework. And, I'm still there for him. And if he needs anything, I'm there. But I'm still sticking to that schedule. I allow very little to interfere with that schedule.
Well, that's good. And we will be having another video, follow-up video about time management. So if you're interested, stay tuned. Last question for you. Is there any advice, tips that you could give to our fellow students watching on how they can stay motivated? Or give them examples or even a reason why they should continue to stay motivated?
Well, you have to stay committed to whatever your goal is. You have to make sure that this is what I want and this is how I'm going to get there. You need to be happy with what you've chosen. Don't be scared to change your major if you're miserable. It's not worth it. And the one thing I know is I got married right out of high school. I had children. And I chose to start my family before my education. And even though everything has worked out well, I would give you the advice before you decide to have children, get your education because it's much harder. And I feel like you feel pulled in more directions once you introduce children to that. So before you have children, finish your education.
And I know for some of our younger viewers that may be watching, they may feel like they have their schedule, they have maybe their college major picked out for them already, and they feel like they're going to stick to it. But one thing that's important to remember is that those things will change. I know mine went through many changes over the course of my life, and it's okay. Even if you know what you're going to be doing as soon as you get into college, but then all of a sudden, you're like, well, I don't know if this is for me. It's okay. It's okay.
To make that change now, because this is what you're going to be doing the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be miserable. You want to enjoy it.
Yes. Agreed. We have a few resources from today's video that we'd like to share with all of you, and these were the books that were mentioned. Here we have Along the Way, Leadership Stories from Everyday Life by Stosh D. Walsh. And we also have Drive, written by Daniel H. Pink. And this one's a deeper look into motivation, and it is by Lambert Deckers, simply titled Motivation, Biological, Psychological, and Environmental. Please feel free to check out any of these books in the event that you would like to stay more motivated. Thank you for watching Beta Zeta Kappa's Student-to-Student Success Network. We hope you were able to take away something useful from today's episode. We have a plethora of social media sites listed below so you can stay connected with us. We wish the best to all of our fellow students, and remember the words of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "Intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education." Until next time, achieve in order to succeed.